This is how you adjust the alignment angles on a 2007 Nissan Sentra. This one specifically has the 2-liter engine, and the SER and the Spec V models with the 2.5-liter engine I know have different specs. So this is the spec sheet for my car specifically. It has the specs for camber, caster, tow, SAI, and IA. And it also has the cross camber, cross caster, cross SAI, and total tow, and the rear camber and tow. The only thing on this car from the factory that you can adjust is the front tow using the tie rods like any other car in the front. Then there is no camber adjustment, no caster, and there's no rear adjustment from the factory at all. From the aftermarket side of things though, you can get adjustable strut mounts like this one here where you can adjust the camber and you can also adjust the caster from these. Then you can also get camber bolts that go in the top hole of the strut that mount to the knuckle. And then in the rear you can get shims that are kind of like angled so it gives you the correct alignment that you need. From the measurements that we were given, almost everything is out of spec except the driver front caster and the rear tow. All of the other measurements are out of the spec and the tolerance given inside of the spec sheet. Given these measurements, the car would have a strong pull to the right because you have a lot of positive caster on the driver's side and almost no caster on the passenger side. You also have a lot of positive camber on the passenger side and a lot of negative on the driver's side, which would also help add to that pull to the right. Another thing that contributes to that though would be the cross caster and cross camber, which are both very out of spec in the front. In the rear, the cross camber is not that bad though, and the total tow isn't that bad on all 4 corners. The front is just slightly out of spec though. To adjust this though, you would go to the rear and you would use the shims for the rear that you could use to adjust the camber and the tow to wherever you want. Then you would come to the front and use either these strut mounts or the camber bolts to adjust your camber and caster, get that where you want it, and then you would go move on to the tow. Then you would have to get the tow in the front pretty much at 0 because that's the spec. You only have 0.04 difference on each side that it lets you, plus or minus. And then in the rear, it's the same thing with 0.04. You have a greater tolerance in the rear, probably because of the lack of adjustment back there. And then after you got the tow right, you could just check your SAI and your IA to make sure that's all good. Check your thrust angle, and if everything's good, you should have a nice alignment.